What were some of the earliest memories you had of like cooking? Like obviously you're in the restaurant industry. You worked in the restaurant industry before you came
Yeah.
to the UAE. What were your first early memories of just?
You know, I didn't like a lot of like restaurant people have that story.
Yeah.
My story, as it relates to food, is really a love story because I worked in restaurants, but I worked in the dining room,
Got it.
and I was in between jobs, and there was a girl that I was crazy about. I ended up marrying her. Remember, Martine? And so, like, I was in between jobs, and I decided that I wanted to impress this girl. And so, I would go to the bookstore, right, Barnes and Noble, and I would just read books. And I would read all the books, and I'd build like a 4 or 5 course menu, and then I'd spend the day shopping. And so, I got to know the city by reading cookbooks and then navigating stores and shops and recipes and cooking to impress this girl,
Wow.
who became my wife. So, obviously, the cooking like landed all right.
A man who cooks. That's
Yeah.
that's a
That's
great
good,
attribute.
right? That's
Yeah.
good.
And for those who don't know, Barnes and Noble used to be a brick and mortar bookstore. You know,
That's
we have
right.
some younger listeners that are like, "What's a Barnes and Noble?"
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
like,
Yeah. It was not. It was the bookstore. Like,
it was the bookstore
Yeah.
next to Tower Records.
Yeah,
a
that's
lot of
right,
them. So yeah.
And in your time in New York, when you worked at these big restaurants, what did you learn there? What did you take away from that?
Yeah, that's a tough question, man. At some level, everything's the same and everything's different. And so, at the best of places, there's just more complexity. There's more layers. But if you individualize any one of those layers and you envelop it in the pursuit of perfection or of high quality or of the best you can do today, then I think you achieve the same thing. So, like at a pizzeria like Marmellata, you're doing one thing, right? You're doing pizza. And in our case, we do 5 different pizza. But our intentionality is as great as a 3-star Michelin restaurant, except there's only one thing. And in a 3-star Michelin restaurant, there's 37 things. And each one of those 37 things has 37 components. And those 30, so you can drill into it infinitely.
Yeah.
But if you reduce it to the one, it's very, very similar. And so I think until working in those restaurants, the illusion from the outside is that they're operating somehow different. And it isn't different, it's just more of the same. But if you're born into the world of intensity, you're already practicing those things, but just on a more singular level.
Yeah, I think I mean, look, as a person who's gone to these fine dining establishments, especially in a place like New York, I can't imagine the intensity
Yeah.
that's going on behind those doors because it's just the expectation. Obviously, they're outrageously expensive, right? Just for
Right.
a normal person to go to these things, and sometimes, like we said off camera, going to a place like Marmellata, they deserve you guys deserve your own 3-star Michelin restaurant for the taste, the experience, the food, and what comes to provide. And I think that you hit it right on the head that, you know, from the outside, somebody might just say bakery or pizzeria or whatever it is, but there's a lot of intensity that goes behind it so that you have the lines outside the door,
Yeah.
people coming in day in and day out, right? So it's sort of like those things, and it's just a commitment to you and your team to have built something from the ground up that's spoke about not just in the country, but also regionally and hopefully globally at one
Yeah,
day.
thank you very
So,
much. Thank you.
And you feel that that intent of family with everyone, not just
Right.
you. And you're there every time I went. You're there greeting people
Right.
and hanging out and talking. But with the whole staff, everyone's like that. And particularly in this region, you don't get that.
Right.
You know, a lot of the staff I feel like are robots who don't have a personality.
Right.
But I think in Marmoletta, like there's that personality. You feel like you're at home. So,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
We absolutely empower people to be themselves, you know, and we believe in the power of people as individuals.
Yeah.
And you can feel that. And so if you're having some restaurants, if you have a really bad meal, they're going to come around to you. They're going to say, that was a really bad, like something went terribly wrong and I'm angry. And someone's going to say, yeah, here's a free pizza. Come back again. We're really sorry. If you said that to us, we're going to say, yeah, I'm really sorry. Let's figure out what happened. Let's fix it. Let's not happen again. But if you come and you say, excuse me, we had the best time ever, and this is my husband, and it's the first time he's having pizza, and he will religiously come here for the rest of the week, we would say, here's a free pizza, come back again. You know what I mean? So we encourage people who get what we do and dig, and so it makes it easier for our team and for ourselves to be happy about what we do because we're surrounded by people that love us.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
what you know, raised in New York, and you know, I think in order to appreciate Marmalade for what it is today, we have to start back. What inspired that move from the States
Goddamn love again, man.
but to the UAE?
Yeah, it's with my wife. My wife's job. My wife's a physician, so we came here when the Cleveland Clinic opened.
Got
So
it.
we came here
Okay.
14 years ago when the Cleveland Clinic
Yep.
opened,
Okay.
right? And then we opened Marmalata because our kids are growing up in this country, and I want them to work. And there weren't after-school jobs, and I feel like working is really it's important. It's an ethic that has to happen. So we opened Marmalata in an effort for our kids to have an after-school job.
What were you trying to teach your kids in order to have the
I was being selfish as a dad.
after-school?
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want that layer of relationship. And so if I'm going to take a step back from the intensity of a 3-star Michelin restaurant, I'm kind of going to bring a little level of that into our family life. And so I want them to know that energy in equals success out.
Yeah.
If you attach that with a whole lot of other things, right? So if that energy is focused, if that energy is resilient, if that energy is deep, if that energy is directed towards the things you don't like as well as the things that you do like, then there's the potential for success to come. But if it isn't universal, it doesn't come. So this was that. Like we rented a storage shed with no water, no electricity, and we put in the water. So they did all that. We put in the water, we put in electricity, we put in the windows, and we opened one night a week. And so you came to work, and there was a hustle. And there was no menu. We just did what we did. So there was an individuality even then. But people were excited by it because the quality of the ingredients was high. So we rented a cheap place, and instead of putting the money in our pocket, we put it into high quality ingredients. And the bet was the people who live here are experts in whatever they do. People that live here are really good at what they do. Like either they're really good at it here and they've traveled and they've tasted the real thing, or they're good at what they do from somewhere else, and so they've been imported for their talent. So you have the privilege of cooking for titans of industry, whatever their industry is. And we took that threshold and I passed it on to them and they stepped up to it. So
nice. That's good. And then what, I guess, was it just a natural evolution of, okay, this is just one night a week, so hey, the demand is here, let's expand.
Yeah, because we're practicing hospitality. And it's like you start disappointing people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then you reach this hill and it's like, the other side is greater than the one we've traversed. We're selling more disappointment than we are pizza. So we've got to open another night. Yeah. And then we've got to open 3. And then you've got to hire someone, right, eventually.
Yeah.
And so then it's like now you're responsible for this human being and for the human beings that this person's responsible for. Yep. So then it becomes bigger than yourself. So you're participating in the growth of the city and the growth of the country and the growth of our industry. And, we're also carrying the DNA of like the New York pizzeria. Yeah. So like our responsibility is to those guys that have been doing it for a long time in Italy and in New York. And I pass that to my kids so that they can, they feel part of a community of cooks.